looks like a cassette recorder.
I know, it's so retro.
I like it.
The 80s are coming back,
Yeah.
and I'm happy about this,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
I go into the mall
I'm
and
kind
say,
of feeling
yes.
that from
yeah,
you.
yeah. Okay, so I think the first thing that we'd like to hear about is a little bit about your background as a teacher. Where did you get your education? How long you've been teaching? That sort of thing.
Okay. I started out in elementary education in college. That was my undergrad. And I got to about the end of my program and was about to start teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And I took a sped class, and the teacher was, like, I really enjoyed what I was learning, and he's like, we have a master's program in sped. If you'd like to, I could probably hook you up with a grad assistantship. And so I said, yes, please. So I kind of got drawn into the special ed realm just because it's good teaching, and that's kind of what I was looking for, was what is good teaching. And so then I did my master's in special ed at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. And after I graduated from there, I came out here to Colorado and have been teaching here since, so 11 years now.
Okay, 11 years teaching in Colorado?
Yeah, teaching at this school too.
Oh.
Yeah. So I don't have a lot of variety in my background. It's all been here, but this has been like a really great place to
you
learn.
Really are comfortable and knowledgeable about this context because you've been here so long.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Anything else that...
No, and then there was that offer to get, I got math endorsed so that I can teach math as well. So my endorsements are in special ed, elementary, and math. We needed someone to be able to do math, and to do that, you had to be endorsed. So I did that maybe 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So
can I just say my experiences, I'm sure you've heard this a lot, with math, it was sort of like traumatizing to me at the point where my brain just goes out the window.
Yeah.
It's like, no. The students are so lucky to have someone like you, like so approachable and all that. Like I was having fun in the classroom, and I'm normally like, no,
this is gross.
I see the importance of it. I feel very inadequate. I want to point that out.
I feel the same way about bilingual education. So I am like, I don't know enough to, and like, So there we go.
Yeah. We've got each other's backs.
Yeah. If you ever have a math question, let me know.
Thank you. So really, I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about your experiences working with emerging bilinguals or emergent bilinguals, some challenges and opportunities along the way that you've encountered.
Okay. So here at Legacy we don't have a whole bunch, but we do have a pretty good crossover between emergent bilinguals and special ed students. We have a few that are both dual identified. One of the things that I remember a few years ago is that we had a kid who came from, I can't remember where he was from now, but he was in ELL. It was his second year in America, was not making progress, and they're like, well, maybe we can provide some services in special ed. And so we were like, well, no, you can't do that without like the evaluation side of things. And so it went back and forth between the district. And so he stayed in the ELD classes, and then I think he actually eventually dropped out. So that was kind of like disappointing to me that we couldn't figure out a way to best meet his needs. In terms of instruction, I remember when they did that big push for the ELD classes, and all of us got, when the Department of Justice came in, and we all had to take the ELL classes for like, I don't remember, it was 20 hours or something of classes. I think it was online mostly. And then, all the language objectives and that kind of thing. I have not used that with Fidelity at all. Maybe a lesson or two here. It's not like I don't do it at all. I just don't think about it or think about it as like must do every day. Or make it that transparent to kids. So I do think about the language that we use and how I want them to use it, but I don't think I make that transparent to the kids in terms of you should be able to do this by the end of today.
Okay. In terms of like language objectives and things like that.
Yeah. I know they're supposed to be posted and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And sorry, just in terms of working with kids, I always struggle with, is it the learning disability or is it the language that's getting in the way? And it sounds like, through this program, hopefully we get a little bit more kind of insight into that. It sounds like there's still a lot of disconnect in research land as well, in terms of what I've read so far and kind of the thinking behind how easy is it to like tease that out. Sounds like that's still kind of a challenge.
Yes. See, I appreciate you bringing that idea, because I think that that's exactly the kind of thing that we want to hear. Like, what are your expectations moving forward? Right?
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's a very important one, as you say. There's lack of clarity among the experts in the field themselves. So.
And then to bring it down to practicality, because there's like the theoretical kind of research world, and then there's like everyday
practice oriented.
In the field. And then like, if you can identify it or you can't, and you just teach off of what their needs are, like what are the best strategies, whether they're ELL or special ed or both. One of the things I was reading, because we did a research paper and that's what mine was on, so I kind of like know a little bit now.
Oh, good.
Now I feel a bit more educated. But like they were saying that strategies that work for students who have disabilities aren't always the right strategies for kids who are learning the language. It's like, oh crap, I think I've been relying on these strategies, my special ed strategies, and I don't know, I thought they were similar.
Yeah. And I think that's a very, like, I understand why you would make that assumption. And I think just the fact that you're, here and wanting to learn more, like, isn't that what teaching is about? You're always learning and evolving, and you look back at what you did 2 years and I was like, no,
what was that?
So I do
that every day. I think that's one of the cool things about education too. It's like you can never do anything perfect. Like everything's always kind of,
it's a work in progress,
but
really.
You can make something a little bit better the next time.
Absolutely.
So,
do you currently identify emergent bilinguals in your classroom? Their levels of English proficiency? Is this something you do at all? If you do, how?
So I guess just at the beginning of the year, because in our Infinite Campus, our student thingy, you can see their flags. And so, all of my students have a special ed flag, and about, I don't know, in that class, I don't think very many of them have the EL, let's see, 1, 2, 3 maybe in that class. In terms of knowing if they're LEP, FEP, or whatever, I don't think I know that for sure.
Okay.
Unless they're on my caseload, and then even then, sometimes I'm like, I gotta double check.
Okay.
One of the things I found with special ed and ELD kids is that I feel like they may be like lower on the ELD thing, but then they have more skills than what that shows, because
You're not the first person to say that.
Disability kind of makes that a little bit lower. So I don't always know if this matches exactly. Yeah, I can imagine that's been brought up.
Yeah. Do you know how your emergent bilinguals are redesignated in your school or district?
I believe they take the access test in February, and then depending on their scores, then they move up or down. I think. Actually, I should probably know that. That would be good to know.
It's not surprising that you don't. Like,
I know there's like a green or blue folder or something that they have. Is it a green folder? I don't know. There's a thing somewhere that has it. I don't know.
I'm new to the Colorado context.
Okay.
I transferred to Colorado. I was in Ohio first and Puerto Rico before that.
Wow.
So I'm still learning about this particular context.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Is this a recent transfer to Colorado?
Yes, and I love it here.
Yeah.
No regrets.
Awesome.
No regrets.
Yeah, going from Puerto Rico to Ohio, That must have been
Everybody says that.
sort of a brain shift.
I
maybe?
was really scared about winter.
Yeah.
Because I never experienced winter.
Yeah.
And it turns out that I bring the heat with me because they had the mildest winter for ages over there. And then I came here last year.
Yeah.
And it was like, we have the mildest winter. We have a very mild winter. It's like, so I bring
must
it.
be you.
Yeah, it
Thank
must
you
be
so
me.
much. I was wondering where that came from.
So, to what extent, and I think that you touched on this, but maybe there's something else that you want to elaborate on. To what extent have you incorporated ESL or ELD instruction for your EBs into your daily schedule?
Into the schedule of it?
Yeah.
I guess just in terms of thinking about language and those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, kind of the same things I think about in terms of my kids who have reading disabilities as well.
Mm-hmm.
How to support their understanding of what it is we're talking about, especially from the math context. Because I teach math exclusively.
Okay.
So it's all special ed classes, all math, all day.
Mm-hmm.
Just different levels.
Mm-hmm.
And so making, the math language fit in, even for kids that are only monolingual.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a lot of translating there.
Mm-hmm. I was never really good at that translating. That's the thing.
Yeah. Just one more language to learn.
Exactly. No, absolutely. Do you modify curriculum materials, group children for instruction, or plan for language to support EB students? Like, what kinds of things do you do if this is something that you're doing right now?
Yeah, I think just in my general modifications of the curriculum in terms of supports I provide, I feel like part of it touches on that. In terms of grouping kids, in one of my other classes I have a kid who is definitely still emerging a little bit, like it's kind of budding up from the ground a little bit, and I have another student who's much further along in his language acquisition, and so I put them together and they sit close to each other. I had noticed at the beginning of the year they were farther apart, but they would, during chat time or whatever, they would talk to each other in Spanish, and so I decided I would just move them closer to each other so that they could do that.
Okay. So you're flexible in terms of the language that they use in these?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't care. As long as they're not saying bad words to me or anything. I've picked up on a couple of them. Like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Let's be nice in our language. And they're like, do you know what we're talking about? And I'm like, no, but I know that's not very nice.
So, and I think this one's kind of repetitive. How do you differentiate instruction for your EBs depending on the content, which in this case it's like math, right? Like math content for your EBs, like what strategies or if it's something that you do at this point.
I feel like it's not super different. I mean, I think I have it clumped in my brain as I'm modifying to support the needs of students. I think one of the things that I do recognize is where kids get stuck, and like today when they were stuck on that type of problem that we were, I was like, oh my god, we've done this 20 million times, so how can I use a different strategy or a different way of discussing it to make it make more sense, or how can I utilize their strengths to... Yeah,
I think that was very clear in the way that you engage with them. So to what extent do you assess your immersion bilinguals in terms of, well, it says language and reading, like literacy, I suppose, but also in terms of math? And again, if you feel like this is repetitive, it's just like, well, like I said, this. I feel like I have to go through the
every single one. Actually, we have a standard of math literacy. So we do in my classes, not as much reading in math. The math curriculum that the gen ed kids use it's a lot more reading involved in it, and so I've kind of pulled back a little bit on that just because it's confusing. Okay. Not just for
You've pulled back a little on what?
On the reading, the amount of reading. Like the other math classes, they use a lot of their textbooks, which has just very verbally verbageized. I don't know. So I don't make them use their books a lot. I never do.
Okay.
And I pare down things and their assessments, like I think about that. But we do talk about writing in math and how to explain yourself in math. In terms of that, I guess I do assess a little bit, and I notice the grammar kind of things, but I typically don't take off for that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for, like, do they get it, or do they not understand the concept through their writing? So if they use, like, the wrong there or whatever, that doesn't matter.
Okay.
As long as they've got, like, the quadratic equation and it's going up or down or whatever.
Okay. Do you have opportunities to incorporate your students' like culture and home language into school days as something that you do? If so, how?
Okay. Not really.
Uh-huh.
Like I put the kids. I mean, if they want to speak Spanish, I don't stop them.
Right.
I've tried to pick up on a couple of things.
Yeah.
Like speak back to them a little bit in Spanish as well, because typically it's just. I think we only have Spanish-speaking kids here. No, there's a couple other ones, but those are predominantly the ones I have in my class. We do have a kid from Laos, and he was teaching us how to say hello, and now I have no idea how to say that. But that's about the extent of my, like, utilization.
Okay. And so, I'm going to skip this one, because...
Conversation.
Do you have you developed any strategies to sort of like involve parents at all, or is that something that you don't?
Yeah, I haven't, and it's definitely an area of weakness of mine in general. I don't feel like I engage a lot of the parents as much as I need to, or some of my other coworkers do in this area that I'm in. I typically deal with the kids.
Yeah.
And I kind of have that conversation with them, like, you don't want me to get your parents involved.
Right.
I'd rather deal with you and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I know that's I mean, even in giving them a call to be like, hey, your kid hasn't shown up in the last, I should probably do a better job of communicating with parents, but that's not an area that that's area for growth.
Yeah, exactly.
So at the end of the study, you'll see that parent involvement improving.
Area of growth, I like it. So this is more shifting toward your experience with the program so far. And
we've only had one class.
Absolutely. And so we have to actually modify, because this is something that the evaluator, people giving us money are asking for. We actually have to like try to think of ways in which to phrase these things in ways that recognize that you've only taken, you haven't even finished, I don't think, the first class.
Yeah.
So these will get more elaborate.
Okay.
We'll apparently conduct visits about once a year.
Okay.
So, and you might just participate in a focus group next year, not the observation. But bearing in mind, and we recognize that you've only taken the one class. How would you rate the course you've taken so far? And how would you compare the professor with, like, other professors that you've had before? Okay. Like, if from a 1 to 4, 1 being the lowest, 4 being the highest. Okay. And obviously, your honesty is very much, like, this is what we're looking for. Yeah.
So... I think part of the thing that's different for me, too, is that now that I'm teaching and taking a master's program versus when I was taking my first master's, it was pre-service, so I hadn't had any of the experience and that kind of thing. It was also, I was only doing my master's program, like I didn't have like another job on top of it. Right. So the amount of time and thought and effort I was able to put into the classes was different.
Absolutely.
That mentality was a little bit shifted, and so I don't know if part of that is why it feels different. The other thing is I had been a part of that special ed community for a while, and so I knew all of the professors, and I was on campus, and I worked, like I was a grad assistant, so I worked with all of them. And so I had a different relationship with the people and the content in that direction as well. So that's kind of just why it maybe feels different now. So I feel like we do a lot of reading, and then we comment on it, and then we have more conversations about the reading.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of instruction, and I get that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know there's a move for more conversations and that kind of thing, but I don't think I've taken notes in any of the classes that we've done. I don't have a lot, and maybe that's because I haven't organized myself as well as I need to.
Mm-hmm.
And just because it's been thought of differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't been as diligent of a student, I would say. I have definitely not read all of the articles that have been provided.
Yeah, no, as a PhD student, I totally get where you're coming from. Sometimes it's possible. You need to prioritize. Like, okay, I'm going to read this because it's...
Yeah. And I've read, like, the title, and I'm like, that sounds interesting.
in the future, I'll revisit this.
I'll keep this one for later, for sure. So that's been kind of what I've noticed, and I know, and so I feel like in my other classes, I did a lot more of like, oh, I gotta take this down for some sort of test or something.
Right.
And it's not a test-based class. I mean, we do the research paper, which is connected, but not completely to that.
Yeah.
So we did talked about our reflection paper that's coming up soon, and it was good to kind of say like, oh yeah, we've had a lot of conversations about a lot of different pieces. I just don't have them like in a place that's like I can go to the website and whatever and pull them back out.
Yeah.
But I don't have anything like, oh yeah, on this day we wrote down this piece of information.
Yeah. So based on that, how would you, on scale of 1 to 4? Again, we are looking for your honesty.
So maybe like a 2.5-ish. I don't know.
Okay. Anything particular about maybe the professor? She won't hear this at all. This is just for us.
Yeah, no, I like her. It just seems like she's kind of coming in like, let's just talk about some things.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Like, it's not like set out.
Like a structured lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I get because it's, I mean, you know, we're having conversations and those things do spur the learning.
Yeah.
So that constructivist idea versus the direct instruction kind of idea.
Yeah.
So we're doing a little bit more, I guess, over on that side.
Yeah. And again, I'm sure this is a little difficult for you to answer, but what are sort of like the strengths and weaknesses of the program so far?
So far?
Yeah. Like having an idea of what your trajectory is going to be, maybe like in the courses and all that.
Yeah. I guess one of the things that is helpful is when they talk about like our end project or our end thingy, like recognizing from the beginning that what we're doing now is going to impact that.
Yeah.
It has been good to kind of hear and be like, okay, don't learn it and then drop it. You
right.
need to continue to kind of build and save. It's good to know. I don't exactly know like what the next. I mean, I'm sure they've told me, but I haven't like. Okay, now I'm gonna do this one next year, and then this will be when I do this type of problem or project or whatever. I don't know that, but that's. I mean, I don't have to know that. One thing has been kind of weird is the communication. I think. In terms of. We were told we were going to have summer classes during these days, and then it seemed like he was kind of waffly and was like, oh, never mind, we'll do it these days. Oh, but that doesn't work for you guys? Oh. Yeah. Like, he was trying to be helpful. Yeah. But then it was, like, more confusing.
Right. When you say he, just to make sure.
Yeah. Not David. Who's the other guy? Oh, I'm sorry.
So we have Lorenzo Aragon, he's the evaluator, and so David Nieto.
No, not David. The other guy who's in charge of the like program thing. I don't think it's Lorenzo. Crap, I'm sorry.
No, and I actually should know.
Yeah.
And
why don't you know?
Why don't I know who you're talking about? Yeah.
I was trying to look it up. Not David. One of the other girls is out here. Can I ask?
Sure. Yeah.
Hey, Kimberly. Nelson Molina.
Nelson.
Yes.
I haven't actually met with him. I
Okay.
report to David, so that's
Okay.
why I was like,
Which
Okay,
guy?
I've heard the name, but no.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not like super bad, and I think he's trying to be like flexible to us.
Yeah.
But like sometimes if it's like, here are their dates, and
Yeah.
then 2 weeks later we change them. But that's not a big massive like craziness, but
No, I've heard this all.
okay. It's
Yeah.
been for I don't want to be like.
No,
I
I've
know
heard
that
it, and this is why we're doing this.
part.
Yes.
Because this is the second year, the second cohort that's gone through it.
Yeah, I think that this is like I think the first cohort that's like with the grant project.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay, so then there's the more oversight and stuff.
Yes,
too.
exactly.
Okay, got it.
Do you have any suggestions on how like the master's program or the MPD project can be strengthened? Suggestions on how to improve, and I feel like sort of what you've said kind of alludes to this, but any other?
I think one thing too would be, not that we need a brochure, but like kind of like a laid out plan of what that is. He gave us like a blank template of like how things are supposed to look, but I think he got it from a student who had put it together. I don't know exactly what it is. But just like, what is it? Because I had originally thought it was like a 1.5-year program, and then I realized, oh, it's like longer than that.
Yeah.
Just kind of a little bit more information in terms of what is it that I'm like
signing up for. Yeah. That's important.
Yeah.
Okay. And anything else that you would like to say?
No,
me.
I'm excited to like kind of get better at this and to learn more about, how to improve for all students. I think that's the big piece for me is like, I've got my special ed ideas, and now I want to kind of dig a little bit more into that and see how we can improve for all kids, because I know our population is changing as well, and so just keeping that in mind about what's best for all students.
My spelling for students. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Sarah,
of
for
course.
taking
Yeah,
time,
no
especially with how hectic